The wind was cold, moving across the battlefield like a ghost. Snow covered the broken ground and smoke from burning machines floated in the air. A soldier walked slowly, his boots heavy, his eyes searching. He was tired, more tired than ever before, but his heart still pushed him forward. The war had taken everything from him, his family, his friends, his home. Now he was only a shadow of the man he once was. He thought the field was empty, only silence and death. But then he heard something, a small sound, a soft cry. It was weak, almost lost in the wind, but it was there. He followed the sound, each step slow and careful, and then he saw her. She was lying in the snow, her skin glowing faint blue, her long hair spread across the ground like a river of light. Her body was wounded, her breathing hard, her clothes torn like she had survived a storm of fire. She was not human, she was alien, and his first thought was to walk away. Aliens had killed so many of his people, and the war was against them. But something in her face stopped him. Her eyes opened, shining like ice and stars, and in them, he saw fear, pain, but also a strange innocence. He stood frozen, his weapon heavy in his hand. If his commander saw this, he would be ordered to finish her, but he could not move. He could not kill her. She tried to speak, her lips moving, her voice weak. He could not understand her words, but the sound was soft, almost like a plea. His heart felt heavy, heavier than the weapon he held. The man took one step closer, his breath white in the cold air, her hand lifted, shaking, reaching toward him. It was not the hand of an enemy, it was the hand of someone who wanted to live. He looked around, afraid other soldiers would see him, but the field was empty, only the dead and the snow. Slowly he knelt beside her. Her skin was cold, but her eyes still burned with life. She whispered something, her voice breaking. Then his heart froze. She whispered his name. He pulled back in shock. How could she know his name? He had never seen her before, never spoken to her kind. Yet here she was, broken and weak, speaking his name like she had known him for years. He felt fear, but also something else, a strange pull deep inside. He wanted to leave her, but his hands refused. He placed his weapon down and lifted her carefully. Her body was light, but her weight pressed deep into his soul. Every step he took with her in his arms felt dangerous. If he was found, both of them would die. But he kept walking, through the snow, through the silence. He could not let her die, not like this. The storm grew stronger, snow whipping against his face. The sky was gray and shadows moved in the distance. He knew soldiers were near, searching the battlefield. If they saw him carrying an alien, they would shoot without question. Still, he pressed on, her head resting weakly against his chest. She whispered again, words he did not know, but her voice was soft, almost comforting. He looked down at her face, and for the first time in years, his heart beat with something more than fear and anger. Memories of his family came back, of the warmth he once had. He wondered if she too had lost someone, if she too was alone. He could not explain why, but he felt connected to her. The war had made him empty, but now carrying her made him feel something he thought was lost forever. Hope. The night was falling, and he had to find shelter. The snow grew deep, the air colder, his body heavy. He found an old building, broken and half buried under ice. Inside, it was dark and cold, but at least it was hidden. He placed her on the ground gently, covering her with part of his coat. Her eyes opened again, and she looked at him with something he could not name. It was not hate. It was not fear, it was almost trust. He sat beside her, his weapon close, his heart racing. He did not know why he had saved her. He did not know why she knew his name, but deep inside, he felt this moment was not an accident. This was the beginning of something far greater than himself. Outside, voices called, soldiers searching in the snow. He held his breath, his hand ready on his weapon. The alien woman reached for his hand, her fingers weak but warm, and in that touch he felt something he had not felt in years, belonging. He realized one truth as the soldiers passed by. The choice he made tonight would change his life forever. He had no idea that this injured alien woman he was carrying would become his family, and one day, bear his child. The night was cold, the ruined shelter shaking in the wind. The soldier sat close to the wall, his weapon beside him, listening to the silence outside. The alien woman lay wrapped in his coat, her breathing slow but steady. Snow fell through holes in the roof, landing softly on the ground like white ash. He should have left her, he told himself again and again, but his hands had refused to let go. His heart had refused to abandon her. He watched her carefully, wondering who she really was. Her skin shimmered faintly, glowing like blue light under the surface. Her wounds looked strange, not like human wounds, some of them closed by themselves, as if her body was fighting to heal. She opened her eyes, weak but aware, and looked at him. For a moment, he felt her gaze like fire through ice. She did not see him as an enemy, and that confused him deeply. The soldier broke a piece of dry bread, offering it to her. She hesitated, then slowly took it, her fingers trembling, her lips moved, forming words in her own language, soft and musical. He shook his head. "I don't understand," he whispered. She looked at him, trying again, this time slower. One word came clear. "Water." Her voice was weak, almost broken, but the word was human. He gave her his flask, and she drank like someone who had been lost in the desert. He could not believe it. She was learning, shaping his language with her tongue. Hours passed. The storm outside grew stronger. He asked her name, pointing to himself and saying, "Name." She watched him carefully, then touched her chest and whispered, "Liara." The sound of it was strange, beautiful, like wind through a canyon. He repeated it slowly, "Liara." For the first time, she smiled faintly, and the light in her eyes grew warmer. He felt something move inside his chest, something he thought was gone forever. Trust later, while she slept, he studied the marks on her armor, strange symbols scratched deep, like memories carved in stone. He traced them with his finger, wondering what they meant. Her body shifted and her voice whispered in her sleep. He leaned closer and his blood froze. She whispered his name again, the same way she had said it before. It was not random, it was not mistake. She knew him, somehow, though he had never seen her before. Morning came gray and silent, the battlefield outside covered in fresh snow. The soldier stepped out to search for food, his breath sharp in the cold. In the distance, he saw movement, shadows of other soldiers walking through the ruins. They were hunting, their voices low but clear. "Someone is hiding here," one said. "We found tracks." Fear burned in his chest. He hurried back to the shelter. Inside, Liara was awake, sitting weakly against the wall. Her eyes met his, and she seemed to know. Looking," she whispered in broken English. He nodded, pressing a finger to his lips. The sound of boots crunched closer, the voices of men echoing in the ruins. She grabbed his hand, pulling him down beside her. Her eyes glowed faintly, and suddenly he felt something strange. The air around them grew colder, thicker, almost like the shadows deepened. Footsteps passed right by the shelter, soldiers walking within reach, but none of them looked inside, as if the two of them were invisible. When the danger was gone, he looked at her in shock. "What did you do?" he whispered. Her face was pale, her body shaking from the effort. She whispered one word, "Gift." Then her eyes closed, and she fell into sleep. He stared at her, his heart pounding. She was no ordinary alien. She had power, and it had just saved his life. Hours later, when she woke again, he asked her questions. Who was she? Why did she know his name? Why had she saved him? Her English was broken, but slowly, painfully, the truth began to come out. She told him she was not like the others. She was hunted by both sides. Her people had betrayed her. The humans would kill her. She was alone, with nowhere to go. Her eyes filled with tears, her voice shaking. No family, she whispered. All gone. The soldier felt a weight in his chest. He too had lost his family, burned away by war. For the first time, he understood her pain. Two strangers, enemies by birth, yet both broken in the same way. He looked at her, and for the first time he did not see alien skin or strange glowing eyes. He saw someone like him, someone who had lost everything. Night came again, the fire burning low. Liara leaned closer, her hand touching his. It was a small touch, but it carried the weight of trust. The soldier closed his eyes, listening to the silence. He knew he had made a choice that could not be undone. Protecting her meant betraying his own kind, but leaving her would mean betraying himself. Outside, the storm passed, but danger grew stronger. The soldiers were still hunting. The warfare was still raging, and somewhere deep in his heart, he felt it. This was only the beginning. The secret she carried would change everything, for her, for him, for the future. The morning light was weak, pale and cold. Snow covered the ruins like a white blanket, hiding both danger and death. The soldier sat in silence, his eyes on the broken doorway, listening. Beside him, Liara moved slowly, her body still weak, but her spirit burning. She whispered his name again, softly, as if she was testing it on her tongue. Every time she said it, he felt something deep inside, a weight and a warmth he could not explain. But the peace did not last. He heard it first, the crunch of boots on frozen ground, the low voices of men. They were close, too close. The soldier's heart raced. He picked up his weapon and signaled Liara to stay quiet. She nodded, her glowing eyes filled with fear, but also trust. He peeked outside, and his blood turned cold. A group of armed soldiers were moving through the ruins, their eyes scanning, their voices sharp. "They're here," one man said. "We know he's hiding something." The soldier pulled back, his breath heavy. If they searched carefully, they would find them. Liara touched his arm, her voice trembling. "We go. Now." He looked at her, then at the open door, then back at her. It was madness to run, but staying meant death. He nodded once, and together they slipped out through the back of the ruins, into the storm of snow. The forest ahead was thick, branches heavy with ice. They moved quickly, the snow crunching under their boots. Behind them, voices rose, shouts of men who had seen their tracks. "Over here," one called. "They're running." Gunfire cracked, echoing through the cold air, bullets cutting into the trees. The soldier grabbed Liara's hand, pulling her faster. Her steps were unsteady, but her will was strong. Every breath burned in his chest, but he did not stop. He could not let her be captured. They ran deeper into the forest, weaving between trees, slipping on ice. The chase grew louder, closer. Liara stumbled once, falling into the snow. The soldier lifted her quickly, carrying her on his back, her arms weakly wrapped around his shoulders, her breath hot against his neck. He pushed forward, every step heavy, but his heart stronger than fear. The sound of soldiers behind them was like a drum of death, never stopping, always near. Hours seemed to pass in minutes, the forest twisting and endless. Finally, they reached a frozen river, the surface cracked with black lines. He stopped, his chest heaving, looking for a way across. The ice looked thin, dangerous, but the voices of soldiers grew closer. "We corner them at the river," someone shouted. Liara's hand touched his cheek, her eyes glowing softly. "Trust," she whispered. Then she raised her hand toward the river, and the ice shimmered, glowing faint blue. The cracks closed, hardening under a light that seemed to come from her own life. He stared in shock, but there was no time to question. Together they stepped onto the ice, crossing quickly. Halfway across, gunfire exploded again, bullets striking the frozen surface. The ice shook beneath their feet, cracking loud. Liara cried out, her body trembling from the effort of holding the ice together. He grabbed her hand, pulling her forward. Faster, faster. Behind them, soldiers shouted, some stepping onto the river, but the ice gave way beneath their boots, swallowing them into the freezing water. The soldier and Liara made it to the far side, collapsing in the snow. Their breaths came in gasps, their bodies shaking, but they were alive. The soldier looked at her, his heart pounding. "You saved us," he whispered, though his words ended with a breath instead of sound. Liara shook her head, her face pale, her energy fading. "Not safe," she whispered. "They keep coming?" And she was right. In the distance, more shadows moved, more soldiers searching. The chase was not over. It had only begun. The two moved again, climbing up rocky ground into the hills. The forest grew darker, caves opening like mouths in the cliffs. The soldier found one, deep and hidden, pulling her inside. The cave was damp and cold, but safe from sight. He lit a small fire, the flames dancing weakly against the stone. Liara leaned against the wall, her eyes half closed, her body exhausted. He knelt beside her, pressing food into her hands. She smiled faintly, whispering, "Thank you." For a long time, silence filled the cave, broken only by the crackle of fire. The soldier thought of the men outside, hunting him, calling him a traitor, and maybe he was. Maybe saving her had already marked his death. But when he looked at Liara, when he saw her glowing eyes filled with trust, he knew he had made the right choice. No matter what the world called him, he would not abandon her. The night deepened, and the sound of soldiers echoed faintly outside. Liara touched his hand again, her voice soft. "You protect me," she said, her English still broken, but her meaning clear. He nodded, gripping her hand tight. "Yes," he whispered, "I will protect you." The firelight danced in her eyes, reflecting something more than fear. It was hope, fragile but alive. But outside, danger crept closer. The soldiers would not stop until they were caught. The chase would not end until blood was spilled. And as the man listened to the wind howling through the cave, he knew this was only the beginning of their running. The war was far from over, and now he carried more than just her life. He carried a secret that would change everything. The cave was dark, the fire burning low. Shadows stretched across the stone walls like silent watchers. The soldier sat close to Liara, listening to her breathing. Her head rested against the wall, her glowing eyes half closed. She was weak, her body trembling from the effort of escaping. Yet even in weakness, there was something powerful about her, something that refused to break. He studied her face in the flicker of the fire. Her skin was smooth, faintly glowing as if starlight lived under it. Her hair spread across her shoulders like silver blue silk. He had seen many faces in the war, filled with hate, pain, or emptiness, but her face was different. It carried both sorrow and strength. It made him wonder who she really was, beyond the war, beyond the wounds. Liara opened her eyes and looked at him. For a moment, they simply stared at each other in silence. Then she spoke slowly, her English still broken. "You save me," she whispered. He nodded, his voice quiet. "I could not leave you." Her lips trembled, and for the first time a tear rolled down her glowing cheek. She whispered, "Why?" The question cut deep. He did not have an answer he could explain, but he felt it inside, stronger than words. He had lost too much already. He could not let himself lose again. The fire warmed the cave, and slowly she began to speak more. She told him pieces of her story, broken sentences, but enough. Her people had turned against her. She had spoken against the war, against the killing. For that, she was hunted by both sides. Her family was gone, her home destroyed, her life reduced to running. As she spoke, her voice shook and her eyes glistened. The soldier listened, and in her story he heard his own. He too had lost his family. Burned away by the endless war, he too had been left alone, carrying only pain and memory. A silence fell, heavy but not empty, for the first two. He felt not alone. Their pain was different, but their hearts were the same. Two broken souls finding each other in the ashes of war. He reached out slowly, his hand brushing against hers, her fingers tensed, then relaxed, curling gently into his. That simple touch carried more weight than any words. It was not the touch of enemies, but of survivors. Days passed in the cave, each one filled with danger outside. The soldiers kept searching, their voices sometimes echoing through the forest. But inside the cave, something changed. The man in Liara began to speak more. Her English grew stronger each day, simple words, but filled with meaning. He taught her, pointing at things, repeating them until she smiled. She laughed once, a soft laugh like music, and it startled him. He had forgotten what laughter sounded like. Hearing it again made him feel alive. At night, when the world outside was silent, they shared food and stories. He told her about his family, about the little house he once had. She listened with eyes full of light. Then she told him about her world, her people, how the skies were green and the rivers sang with sound. Her words painted pictures in his mind, pictures of a world he would never see. Yet through her voice, he felt as if he had touched it. The bond between them grew, silent but strong. Every time she smiled, he felt warmth in his chest. Every time she leaned on him, he felt purpose again. And every time he looked into her glowing eyes, he saw something he thought was gone forever. Hope. One night, as the fire burned low, she moved closer. Her hand touched his cheek, soft and trembling. "You, different," she whispered. He looked at her, his heart racing. "You too," he said softly. Her eyes filled with tears, but her lips curved into a small smile. For a long time they sat in silence, the fire crackling, the storm howling outside. But inside, there was peace, a fragile peace born not of war, but of trust. The soldier knew the danger was still out there, the men hunting him, the war raging beyond the hills. But here, in this cave, he felt safe. Not because the cave was strong, but because of the bond between them. Liara was no longer just an alien, and he was no longer just a soldier. Together, they were something more, something unspoken, yet powerful. When sleep came, it was the first peaceful sleep he had known in years. Her head rested lightly against his shoulder, her breathing soft and steady, his hand still holding hers, refusing to let go. And in that moment, he made a silent promise. No matter what came, no matter how many hunted them, he would protect her. Not because she was weak, not because she was alien, but because she was his. Outside, the war continued. Soldiers marched, weapons fired, lives ended. But inside that cave, two broken souls had found something stronger than war, something worth living for, and something worth dying for. The cave had given them days of safety, but safety could not last forever. The fire was dying low and the soldier heard it again. Voices outside, footsteps crunching over frozen ground. The enemy had not given up. They were still searching, still hunting. Liara sat up, her glowing eyes wide with fear. "They find us," she whispered, her voice trembling. He nodded, gripping his weapon tight, his heart heavy. He had known this day would come, but he had hoped for more time. The soldiers outside grew louder, their words sharp. "Search every cave," one shouted. "The traitor is near." The soldier's stomach twisted. They were no longer only after her, they were after him too. His choice had marked him. He was no longer one of them. He turned to Liara, his voice low. "We have to move now." She shook her head weakly, her body still fragile from wounds and running, but there was no time to argue. They slipped out the back of the Pierre-Tourne, a cave into the night, the snow falling heavy. The forest was dark, branches heavy with ice. The soldier carried her again, his breath burning, his body aching. Behind them, shouts rose as soldiers entered the cave and found it empty. "They're running!" Someone yelled, "Catch them!" Gunfire split the night, bullets tearing into the trees. The soldier ran faster, his boots pounding the snow. Liara clung to him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They reached a clearing, wide and open, the moonlight shining on the snow. It was the worst place to be. No cover, no shadows to hide, but they had no choice. The soldiers burst from the trees behind them, weapons raised. "Stop," one shouted. "Drop her, and we'll let you live." The soldier's heart raged. He knew it was a lie. He tightened his hold on Liara, whispering, "Hold on." And then he ran into the open. Gunfire thundered, bullets flying past him, some striking the snow at his feet. He zigzagged, pushing his body beyond its limit. Liara lifted her hand, weak but determined. A faint shield of blue light shimmered around them, deflecting a few bullets. But it was thin, fragile, and each shot cracked it further. The soldier reached the other side of the clearing and dove behind a fallen tree, breathing hard, heart pounding, but they were not safe. The soldiers were closing in. Liara's body shook, her face pale, her voice weak. "Stop them," she whispered. He turned to her, shaking his head. "No, you're too weak. Don't." Her glowing eyes filled with sorrow, but also strength. "If I not, you die," she said softly. He grabbed her shoulders, desperate. "If you use your power, it will kill you." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Better me than you." The soldier's heart broke. He could not lose her, not now, not when she had become the only light left in his world. But the soldiers were getting closer, their shadows moving through the trees. He raised his weapon, firing into the night, but there were too many. Liara touched his hand, her fingers warm against his cold skin, her eyes locked on his, shining with tears. "Trust me," she whispered, the same words she had said at the river, and before he could stop her, she pushed herself to her feet. Her body glowed brighter than ever, her hair flowing like silver fire. She raised both hands, and a wave of blue light spread across the forest. The snow shook, the trees groaned, the air itself seemed to burn. The soldiers screamed, their weapons flying from their hands, their bodies thrown back into the darkness. The power was beautiful and terrifying, a storm of light that split the night. The soldier shielded his eyes, his heart torn between awe and fear. But as the light faded, he saw her collapse, her body falling like a broken star. He rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Her body was weak, her glow fading, her breathing shallow. No, stay with me," he whispered, his voice breaking. Her hand touched his cheek, trembling. "You live," she whispered softly. "That is enough." Tears burned his eyes, falling onto her glowing skin. "No," he said, shaking his head. "Not without you. I won't leave you." She tried to smile, but her strength was gone. The soldier held her close, his arms wrapped around her, his body shaking with grief. Around them, the forest was silent, the soldiers gone, driven back by her sacrifice. But victory felt hollow. He looked down at her pale face and his heart shattered. He realized in that moment he would rather die than lose her. The snow fell heavier, covering the battlefield. He lifted her again, holding her tightly. Refusing to let go, his voice shook as he whispered, "I'll carry you, always." The night stretched on, the cold biting deep, but the warmth of her fading light guided him. He walked into the darkness, carrying her like the most precious treasure he had ever known. He did not know if she would live. He did not know if they would survive another day. But one truth burned in his chest stronger than fear. He would not let her sacrifice be the end. Even if the world called him traitor, even if the war swallowed him whole, he would fight, he would protect her. Because now, she was more than an alien. She was his family, his only reason to keep breathing. The storm had passed, but the soldier kept walking. His arms carried Liara, her body weak, her glow faint but still alive. Each step felt heavy, but he refused to stop. The forest stretched endlessly, snow covering every path. Yet deep inside, he believed there had to be a place where the war could not reach them. Days blurred into nights, and nights blurred into days. He built fires. He searched for food. He gave her water, drop by drop. Sometimes she slept for hours. Sometimes she opened her eyes just long enough to whisper his name. Every time she spoke it, he found the strength to keep moving. He was no longer running from death. He was carrying life. At last, they found a valley, hidden between mountains. The air there was softer, the snow lighter, the silence deeper. No footsteps, no gunfire, no voices of soldiers hunting, only wind, birds, and the sound of water flowing from a small river. For the first time, he felt safe. He built a shelter from wood and stone, and together they began to live. The days were quiet, filled with work and small moments of peace. The soldier hunted animals and gathered food. Liara healed slowly, her strength returning with each sunrise. She helped by planting roots near the river, her strange touch making them grow faster. Her powers were not only for battle, they were for life. The valley began to bloom with colors even in the cold season, and for the first time since the war began, he felt like he was building instead of destroying. They sat by the fire each night, sharing stories. Her English grew stronger, her words clearer. She laughed more often, and her laughter filled the small shelter with warmth. Sometimes she sang softly in her own language, her voice like wind through glass. The soldier would close his eyes and listen, feeling peace in every note. He had once believed he would never smile again, but now he smiled often because of her. Months passed, and the valley became their world. The war outside was still burning, but here, it felt far away. He almost forgot what it sounded like to hear gunfire. He almost forgot the weight of orders and uniforms. Instead, he remembered what it meant to live, to wake up beside someone who mattered, to protect not because of duty but because of love. But love often carries secrets, and one night, as the firelight danced on the walls, Liara took his hand. Her glowing eyes shone with both joy and fear. "There is something," she whispered, her voice trembling. He looked at her, his heart suddenly uneasy. "What is it?" he asked softly. She touched her stomach with her hand, her fingers trembling, her lips curved into a faint smile, but her eyes filled with tears. "I carry life," she whispered, "your life, and mine." His breath caught, his heart thundered. He stared at her in shock, unable to believe. "A child," he whispered, his voice breaking. She nodded, her tears falling. "Yes, child, yours and mine." He sank to his knees, his hands shaking as he touched her hands. He never thought this was possible. A child born of two worlds, half human, half alien. The war had taken everything from him, but now life was giving him something he thought was lost forever, a family. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Tears filled his eyes, but they were not only of sorrow. For the first time, they were tears of hope. He whispered against her hair, "We will protect this child. We will protect you." Liara pressed her forehead against his, her voice soft. "We are family now." The days that followed were filled with new purpose. The soldier built stronger walls for their shelter. He hunted more carefully, saving food for the future. Liara grew quieter, her body glowing faintly at times, her energy focused on the life inside her. He watched her with awe, fear, and love. Every time she placed his hand against her stomach, he felt warmth, the small beat of something growing, and it gave him strength like nothing else could. But even in the valley, danger whispered in the wind. Sometimes he saw shadows moving at the edges of the mountains. Sometimes he heard faint echoes, like voices carried far. He knew the war had not ended, and the hunters might return. But now he had more to fight for than ever before. Not just survival, but a future. One evening, as the sun set red behind the peaks, Liara leaned against him, her voice soft. "You afraid?" she asked. He nodded, his eyes on the horizon. "Yes, I'm afraid." She smiled gently, her hand resting on his. "But together, we strong." Her words were simple, but they filled him with courage. He realized fear was no longer his enemy. Fear meant he had something precious to lose, and that something was her, and the child. The valley grew darker as night fell. The soldier sat awake, watching the fire, listening to the steady breath of the woman who had become his world, and the faint beat of the life that would soon join them. He knew the peace could not last forever, but he also knew one truth, stronger than war. No matter what came, he would protect them, because now he was not just a soldier, he was a father, a protector and part of a family. The valley was quiet, the days moving slowly like the flow of the river. The soldier had grown used to the rhythm of life, building, hunting, protecting. Liara's body grew weaker, yet her glow grew brighter. The child inside her was strong, and every day he felt its small heartbeat when she placed his hand gently on her stomach. Each time he felt it, his heart filled with something he had almost forgotten. Joy. He watched over her carefully, never leaving her side for long. He gathered food, carried water, made the shelter warmer. He had fought battles all his life, but this was a different kind of fight. Not against enemies, but against fear, hunger, and time. Liara smiled often, even when she was tired. "You protect too much," she teased in her soft, broken English. He smiled back. "I will never stop." And she laughed, her voice light as wind. Her laughter made the valley feel alive. When the time finally came, the sky was heavy with storm clouds, rain mixed with snow, and thunder echoed through the mountains. Liara's voice shook as pain coursed through her body. The soldier held her hands, his heart pounding with fear. He whispered words of comfort, words of love. "You are strong. You are not alone. I am here." She cried out, her voice both pain and power. And then, as the storm raged outside, a new cry filled the shelter, the cry of life. The child was born, small and fragile, with skin pale as snow but eyes glowing faint like Liara's, half human, half alien, yet more beautiful than anything he had ever seen. Tears fell from his eyes as he held the baby close. Liara leaned weakly against him, her face pale but glowing with joy. "Our child," she whispered, her voice breaking. He kissed her forehead, whispering back, "Our family." The days after the birth were filled with both struggle and wonder. The soldier worked harder than ever, protecting them, feeding the... Every night he returned to the shelter, where Liara held their child close. He would sit beside them, watching the small heartbeat of the baby's chest. It was fragile, but it was life. It was hope made flesh. Sometimes fear crept into his heart. He wondered what the world would do if they discovered the child, a child born of two enemies. Proof that the war was not unbreakable. Would they see the child as hope or as danger? Liara sensed his fear, and one night as the fire glowed soft, she whispered, "Do not fear tomorrow. We have today." Her words struck deep, reminding him that every moment with them was precious, and in those moments, he found strength. The child grew quickly, its glowing eyes following the light of the fire, its small hands reaching for his fingers. Each touch was like a promise. He had once thought his life ended with war, but now he saw a new beginning. He whispered to the child often, words he wished someone had told him long ago. "You are not alone. You are loved. I will protect you." But danger never truly left. One night, while gathering wood at the edge of the valley, the soldier saw movement, shadows in the distance, soldiers patrolling, searching. His heart sank. The world outside had not forgotten. The war was still alive, and one day, it would come to their valley. He returned quickly, his eyes heavy with worry. Liara looked at him, already knowing. "They search," she whispered. He nodded. "Yes, but I will fight if they find us." Her hand touched his cheek, her eyes glowing faintly. "Not only fight. Protect. Protect what we made." The soldier sat awake many nights after that, his weapon beside him. Every sound in the forest made his body tense, but when he looked at Liara and the child, his fear turned into fire. He was no longer only a soldier running from war, he was a father, and a father does not run. He stands. As the seasons turned, the valley bloomed with new life. The river sang, trees grew tall, the land healed slowly, and so did he. He no longer thought of himself as broken, he no longer thought of himself as lost, because every day he woke to see Liara's smile in the glowing eyes of his child, and that was enough. One evening, as the sun set golden over the peaks, he stood outside the shelter holding the child in his arms. Liara stood beside him, her hand in his. The sky was quiet, the air calm. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "I lost everything once, but now I have more than I ever dreamed." Liara leaned against him, her voice a whisper in the wind. "Family." The word was simple, but it carried the weight of worlds. The soldier knew the future was uncertain. He knew enemies might still come, the war might still reach them. But he also knew one truth stronger than fear, stronger than war. No matter what happened, he would protect them, because this was his family, and for family, he would fight until his last breath. The night fell, stars lighting the sky like countless eyes watching over them. The child slept peacefully, warm in his arms. Liara's head rested on his shoulder, her eyes glowing soft in the starlight. And in that quiet moment, in the hidden valley untouched by war, a soldier, an alien, and their child became something the world had forgotten. Hope.